I am fortunate to have on now someone whose name a lot of us know a lot better than when last weekend started. It is Laura Loomer from Rebel Media, who you may have seen in a production of Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare over the weekend. Laura, I'm really appreciative that you made the time to come on Backlash here on Shark Nation Radio, even though you've probably never heard of us.
That's okay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
First of all, good job with that. Without any sort of violence, you managed to get a message across in a way that the left doesn't, and a lot of people hate you now for it, but I am very impressed. I just have to say that at the start. So maybe it's not going to be the most objective interview, but maybe you could start off by telling, before we even get to Julius Caesar, a little bit about yourself and your background for the people out there who just don't know you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again. I'm 24 years old. I live in New York. I am originally from Tucson, Arizona. I went to school in Miami, Florida at Baylor University, and I studied broadcast journalism and political science. I was kicked out of college for doing an undercover film with Project Veritas, who I later ended up working with for the next 3 years. And I continued to do investigative journalism with Project Veritas, like I said, for the past 3 years. And I just recently left Project Veritas to join Rebel Media about 2 weeks ago. So I'm fairly new to Rebel Media. Rebel Media is a Canadian alternative media conservative outlet online. They're doing phenomenal work right now, exposing corruption, fraud, abuse. They have great commentary and journalism on issues impacting the world, and they have bureaus all around the world as well. So I urge you to follow and subscribe to Rebel Media if you're not already following Rebel. That's where you can find my work.
Very well done, by the way. Yeah, Jack Posobiec has been on the show a few times, and he runs the D.C. office, and he, I suppose, lately has been the most visible person on Rebel Media. Okay, so
yeah, he doesn't work with Rebel anymore, but yeah, you're right. Jack did run the DC bureau, but he's no longer with Rebel.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, big development here. But you've worked closely with Jack in the last 72 hours, I guess.
Well, actually, I wasn't working with Jack. It was not a coordinated effort.
Oh, really?
The liberal media is trying to spin the narrative that Jack and I coordinated together to disrupt this play, but I actually had planned on my own to attend this showing of Julius Caesar, and coincidentally, Mike Cernovich and Alex Jones launched a contest in which they said they would pay people $1,000 if they would shout CNN is ISIS during the Julius Caesar play, due to the fact that CNN is not only a sponsor of Julius Caesar, but of course they have aligned themselves with ISIS after refusing to condemn Kathy Griffin. As you recall, she did a photograph session in which she pictured herself decapitating President Trump in ISIS fashion, right? So more normalized political violence from the left against the right. So yes. Jack and I ended up seeing each other, and he just kind of looked at me, I looked at him, and we texted each other. We're like, whoa, what are you doing here? Huh. And as I got up, he started to film because he saw me get up. And so Jack ended up broadcasting it, and then luckily he was there when I was arrested as well to document everything, along with one of my friends who is a member of the Proud Boys who documented it as well.
No kidding. And the Proud Boys, just if people don't know, there was another disruption last night, and I guess it's going to be the last disruption because the show closed, or the play closed.
Mm-hmm. My friend Jovi Val and Sal Coppola, two New York-based Proud Boys, successfully disrupted Julius Caesar and rushed the stage after I did. And yeah, they got the message across the sun on the last night of the showing. So I'd say that it was a success.
Yeah. The only thing that's weird about the whole thing, I don't know if you have like the literature background or Shakespeare, but the play itself is kind of harsh on the people who assassinated Caesar. I mean, they make Brutus seem like kind of a tool, like a dumb person. So it's almost like, in a way, it's sort of like condemning the anti-Trump people, but I imagine that's lost on most of the crowd.
Well, look, so some people are saying that I don't understand literature. Let me tell you this. Julius Caesar in its actual form, right, is a tragedy. But the ways that the New York City Public Theater has decided to recreate this version of Julius Caesar in which Trump is Caesar is a comedy, right? So they have decided to make a tragedy comedy and make light and celebrate the death of Donald Trump, the Donald Trump character, which is Caesar, in the play. People were literally cheering when they were stabbing him on stage, right? While in classic Shakespearean way, the people would be condemned, and the message would be, it's actually wrong to kill somebody you perceive to be a tyrant, and it will have consequences. They completely manipulated the script and made humor of it. So they desensitized people to the fact that they were killing somebody, which takes away from Shakespeare's original message. And also, I just want to emphasize that Shakespeare was not one to promote violence. Shakespeare once said that violent lights have violent ends, right? So when you decide to take delight or pleasure in assassination porn of your president, you are moving yourself towards a violent end, which we saw last week when Representative Steve Scalise was shot in an assassination attempt by a liberal fake news supporter, somebody who has endorsed Rachel Maddow, who has publicly given support for the New York City Public Theater and Julius Caesar, right? So one can say that he was inspired by Julius Caesar potentially to do this. Like there's not a lot of evidence, but a lot of these people, a lot of these deranged leftists and liberals with Trump derangement syndrome are getting their ideas from celebrities, the liberal media like the New York Times and CNN, which has given funds to financially support Julius Caesar in New York City, right? And so these people are desensitized to what it means to incite violence against authority and to undermine the president.
Can you imagine, Laura, what they would do with Titus Andronicus, which is probably Shakespeare's most violent player? I remember seeing that in the Philadelphia Shakespeare Company production of it, and man,
so
that one's brutal.
I would just really encourage people to not fall into that trap. Oh, go read Julius Caesar. You're illiterate. You obviously have never read Julius Caesar. I have read Julius Caesar. I've seen the play before. I'm not illiterate. This is a bastardization of Shakespeare, and Shakespeare would be rolling in his grave right now. Yeah,
and Julius Caesar, if I remember correctly, it's been a while for me. The violence is pretty much done at the beginning, and then it really becomes about Brutus and his gullibility. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while for me, and I haven't researched the play itself.
It's probably middle. It's a 2-hour-long production, and the violence or the stabbing or the assassination of Trump took place about an hour into the show, about 45 minutes to an hour. So, yes, you are right.
Well, I'm mistaken. I thought it was earlier, actually.
And that is why the video I decided to perform my stunt and my protest as they were assassinating him. So as they say, et tu, Brute, I stormed the stage because I wanted to I was trying to be literary and prevent the assassination of Donald Trump. And I did. I successfully prevented the assassination before I was taken off stage.
Well done. Just like some of Reagan's Secret Service people, I guess now 36 years ago, well before your time. Okay, so let's talk about the reaction to that. It's gotten interesting. Like, obviously, a lot of people know your name, but I didn't even realize you were Jewish until I saw it. But, whoa, you in a gas chamber thing, like with some guy named Baked Alaska, who I met at one point. I don't even know his real name. Like, tell us about what's going on just in the last 3 days.
Yeah, it's been unreal. So when I did this, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to Periscope it. It's going to get 1,000 views, whatever. People will laugh or people will say right on. I had no idea that this was going to be a national news story. I mean, I turn on the TV and I can't avoid seeing my face or seeing, a debate or discussion about this video all weekend long, even today. And so that's new to me. I gained about 35,000 new followers on Twitter. I'm receiving a lot of support from people in the pro-Trump movement, but I have received so much hate. I've never received so much hate in my life, not only from liberals, but also from people in the alt-right movement. I am a conservative, but I do not identify with the alt-right movement. Particularly people like Richard Spencer and Baked Alaska, who have decided to promote anti-Semitism and critique me based on the fact that I'm a Jewish woman instead of the fact that I was condemning political violence. So yes, you are right. Baked Alaska photoshopped a picture of me in a gas chamber with Donald Trump pressing the gas button to suggest that he would like me to be gassed. And then a lot of David Duke supporters and the Daily Stormer started criticizing me for being Jewish and attacking me, and they started calling me a shekel robber, and just making a lot of really nasty anti-Semitic remarks. And
I'm just wondering where that came from. I mean, you would think they would appreciate what you did, but some, I guess, are critical of the fact that you did use this as a means to get your message across. I loved what Mike Cernovich wrote, by the way, and you retweeted. Laura and Jack started a worldwide conversation without using any violence. This is how it's done. That sums it up for me. And then one other thing.
And you're right. We started a national debate, and it wasn't before I decided to storm the stage and ended up getting arrested that the liberal media started to question the impact of left-wing political violence against the right. I mean, even the New York Times, which has doubled down in its support of Julius Caesar, was forced to write an article about this and address political violence. It's unreal,
Yeah, and I wanted to add one other thing Mike Cernovich wrote. Disrupting a play now and then is a necessary and proportional response to left-wing riots. If it becomes common, different analysis. Chill. So it's a one-time thing they're talking about. And, of course, this is in the aftermath of what happened with Hamilton, and where it became about, it didn't disrupt the play, but they addressed the fact that Mike Pence was in there and they lectured him or whatever they did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And look, this is not something, I am not encouraging people to, shut down plays in the future, but this needed to be done. This needed to be done to create a national debate and force people to recognize the political violence that the right has been facing. And honestly, the left uses free speech and artistic expression, as they call it, as a pretext to inciting violence against the right. So by me hijacking the stage, I took back the theater for the conservatives, which is an institution that the left has locked conservatives out of for years, right? Mm-hmm. So we took over their place of worship, and we forced them to recognize a major political issue right now in their place of worship, and that's what's causing all of this dissonance right now. Is we literally disrupted their place of worship.
With the possible exception of the movie Wonder Woman, I had Harry Kachatrian from the Daily Wire on last week, and he said it's actually kind of conservative in its views. And speaking of the Daily Wire, I understand that Ben Shapiro, who, truth be told, has been a guest on this show, has not been so supportive of you.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro is not supporting me, but look, he's not going to support me. I don't expect a guy who aligned himself with liberals throughout the entire election and denounced Trump and did everything in his power to fuel the Never Trump movement to divide the right to support me in my efforts, right? This may be controversial to say, but the one thing that the leftists and Never Trumpers have in common is their desire to eradicate Donald Trump. So why would Ben Shapiro want to condemn political violence against the right and support me when assassinating Donald Trump would only fulfill his goal of getting rid of Donald Trump and not having to recognize him as his president? It's been very difficult for Ben to say the words Donald Trump is my president. He can't swallow that pill.
All I know is if Baked Alaska is listening, he's really confused right now about his opinion with you and going on Ben Shapiro, because I imagine he's not a Ben Shapiro fan either.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not really focused on the haters and
I'm kidding.
People like Richard Spencer. No. I know you're kidding, but look, those people are creating a toxic environment, and they're trying to take attention away from a serious issue and shine the spotlight on themselves. So this isn't about me. This isn't about them. It's about ending the normalization of political violence against the right and forcing the liberal media to condemn violence, something they have resisted, something they have refused to do, something we have never seen before in any other presidential term. The media has never been so determined to support a violent movement against the right.
Well,
as they are now.
You know the expression about cornered rats, because nothing has worked for them, so they're increasingly desperate, I would think. Some of their efforts against President Bush, too, certainly were effective, like the New York Times putting Abu Ghraib on the front page 70 times or whatever it was. But here, nothing has worked.
Yeah, and look, Ben Shapiro's criticizing me, and he's calling me a snowflake and an SJW, but Donald Trump didn't win. Donald Trump didn't.
What? Why? I mean, that's not a very snowflakey thing to do. I mean, I guess protesting is, but that showed cojones. You're not snowflake to me.
Why is protesting a snowflakey thing? Violent protesting is, but we have a constitutional right to protest and express free speech. Conservatives have labeled the protest movement as a snowflake SJW tactic, but I think they're failing to realize that that's our constitutional right. It's a moral obligation to use your right to protest and use your free speech to condemn violence and speak up for what is right, as long as you're not violent. And I showed conservatives that we can be just as effective, if not even more effective, than the left by using nonviolent tactics in less than 20 seconds. I was on stage for less than 30 seconds, and I became a national news story. The topic of political violence became a national news debate in under 20 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the conservatives need to embrace their constitutional right to protest and start using public protest as a way to condemn the violence and stand up for themselves, because we're in a culture war right now, and you need to use liberal tactics against the left. I encourage everybody to go buy a copy of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. And rule number 4, use the enemy's rules against them. Make them play by their own rule book. That's something that James O'Keefe hammered in my head when I used to work for him at Project Veritas, and that's a skill that I have continued to use at Rebel Media. You have to adapt their playbook in order to win this war.
Yeah, you know what? I have 2 things to respond to there. First of all, snowflakes, I don't think of as the protesters. I think of them as whiners who are just complaining about anything hurting their feelings. That, to me, it's not like anything that would be considered alpha behavior. It's the people who sit around and whine, like because someone's speaking, as opposed to the people who actually confront Ann Coulter. It's the people who are like, oh, my God, this is so intimidating. I need to go to my safe space. Mm-hmm. That's the snowflake. So I don't know why Ben Shapiro would have used it. And the second thing is, okay, you don't know much about me. I sort of made a little bit of a name for myself because I was with RSBN before the election. So for 3-4 months, I was sort of the face who would be going to the rallies and interviewing people. But importantly, I was holding the camera inside, and I was shooting it as well. And one pet peeve of mine was there were protesters at Trump rallies, but you could never hear them. It would often be males with a low voice. So I have to say, obviously you had no choice, but you can only use your voice. But it's so much better when the person who is actually making the statement is a female and presumably higher voiced than someone who you can't hear, because it's just so much easier to make out a higher voice. So it was like, good. At least the person who did this was female. You can understand her.
Yeah, well, thank God all those theater classes I took in high school finally paid off, right?
Right. Well, hey, I got to give credit to the Code Pink person. She definitely enunciates when she goes in and disrupts in the Capitol. You can understand what she's saying.
Your voice, you don't need violent tactics. You don't need to use weapons like the left. The most powerful weapon you have in this movement is your voice, because look, Antifa has been using violent tactics for a really long time now. The left has been using violent tactics, and liberals have never condemned them. And I used my voice, and now finally liberals are speaking up, and some are saying, she has a point. It's time for us to address this issue. So, don't feel helpless. Don't feel like you don't have a voice. I have physically been assaulted by Antifa and liberal protesters before. I've been hit in the head with a pole. I had my phone smashed on live stream by Antifa at a protest in New York City. So I know what it feels like to be assaulted. I know what it feels like to be shut down, and for people and police officers to make you feel like you don't matter when these people are not arrested. When conservatives like myself are arrested for using our voice, but liberals are not arrested for using violence. But we need to continue to speak out. It's the only way it's going to change.
Has the ACLU commended you yet for highlighting the importance of free speech?
No,
not quite.
They have not.
Of course not.
They have not. No.
All right.
But yeah, it's a battle. But I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep on fighting. And I have a court date set on August 14th. I'm being charged with trespassing and disorderly conduct. So if you would like to support me in my legal defense fund, you can go to freelaura.com on the Rebel Media page and support me in my legal fees. I will need support, but I'm going to keep fighting. And this is only my second week at Rebel, and I'd say it's quite a story, and I plan on only doing bigger things from here on out.
That's making a splash. Let me just give some of your information if people want to follow you. Instagram @Looms, LOOMS 9. You're on Facebook, freelaura.com, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
What's that?
Looms 9. It's Looms 93.
Oh, I got that down wrong. Sorry. @Looms 93. Twitter @LauraLoomer. They haven't even verified you yet. I guess that'll be coming within a day or two as you get more and more famous.
I will. I'll see. I've applied for verification, and we'll see if they will verify me.
Any final thoughts, Laura? And thank you for being generous with your time, because I know I'm not the only person interviewing you today.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I'll be on Sean Hannity tonight at 10 p.m., Sean Hannity Radio at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll be doing interviews all week. So thank you so much for your support. Subscribe to The Rebel. And, yeah, thank you so much.
And from one Jew to another, Yasher Koach, a.k.a. for those listening, well done. Laura Loomer, great having you on.
Appreciate it.